When you record audio, it doesn't always sound perfect right out of the mic. It might be too quiet, too noisy, or just not ready to be used in a professional project or to be uploaded online. That's why you need to do some audio processing, and to process audio in Audition, you'll use the Effects menu. Inside the Effects menu, you'll find two main types of effects. Built-in effects that come with Adobe Audition. Third-party effects that you can install separately. We'll focus on built-in effects for now. I'll talk about third-party effects later. The built-in effects are neatly organized into categories based on what they do. For example, there's a category called Amplitude and Compression. This includes all the tools that control the volume and loudness of your audio. Each effect has its own settings, and how you configure them depends on your type of audio and the specific problem you're trying to solve. We'll go through the most essential ones. There are also effects for fixing audio issues, like noise reduction. If your recording has background noise, you'll find helpful tools under the Noise Reduction, Restoration section. When learning how to use effects in Audition, you should always follow this three-step process. Identify the problem in your recording. Choose the right effect for that problem. Configure the effect properly based on your recording. Some effects can be used with the same settings every time, but others need to be adjusted for each recording. We'll learn both types as we go. Let's start with the Normalize effect. The Normalize effect is found under Effects, Amplitude and Compression. You can see a Normalize process effect here. When you click on it, a settings window will pop up. There are two ways to normalize audio. By setting a percentage, however, I do not recommend the percentage settings as it is complex to understand. Another way is by choosing a specific decibel dB value. This is what we'll use. So, what does a dB value mean here? You can set the normalization level to something like -3 dB or -1 dB. These are negative numbers because 0 dB is the maximum level your audio can reach without distortion. Going over 0 can cause clipping, which you want to avoid. Now, look at the waveform in your Audition timeline. On the right side, you'll see a decibel scale. The height of the waveform gives you an idea of how loud the audio is. For example, this audio isn't going beyond -12 dB at any point. You have to pay attention to both the top half and the bottom half of this scale. The maximum point of the audio is called the peak amplitude. Through the Normalize effect, we set the peak amplitude of a recording.
With a lifetime guarantee against breakage to back it up. Wait, cutting.
When you normalize, the peak of the waveform gets adjusted to your chosen target. So if you normalize to -3 dB, the loudest point in the waveform will now reach exactly -3 dB. The rest of the audio will scale up proportionally, making the overall volume louder. You can also find shortcuts for normalization in the Favorites menu. There are two shortcuts here, Normalize to -3 dB, and Normalize to -0.1 dB. Normalize to -3 dB is standard practice. When we need to do it, we can do it from the Favorites menu. All the items you see in the Favorites menu are shortcuts to specific audio effects. Let's say you click on Normalize to -3 dB from Favorites. The waveform will grow in size, and the loudest part will now touch the -3 dB mark, either on the top half or bottom half, or both. This is perfectly normal. For example, on this audio, it has touched -3 dB at the bottom half. If we play that part of the audio, we can also be sure it is touching -3 dB in the meter. If you play the audio after normalizing, you'll hear that the volume has increased compared to before.
With a lifetime guarantee against breakage to back it up. Weight, cutting surface, and speed set us apart.
You see the audio has increased in volume. If I recap what has happened here, you will see the difference. Before Normalize, the waveform was smaller in height. I will undo it from keyboard shortcut Command Z. This was the waveform before Normalize. I will now redo with Command-Shift-Z. This is the waveform after Normalize. The waveform grew in size because the peak amplitude of the waveform was less than the peak amplitude of Normalize. It is not the case that the waveform will always increase in height. Let's see another example to understand it better. Let's open a different audio file where the waveform is already touching 0 dB. I have opened another recording where the peak amplitude is touching 0 dB. There is another way to check the peak amplitude of a recording. You can confirm this by using the Amplitude Statistics panel. Go to Window Amplitude Statistics. You can see a new panel has been opened here. This is the Amplitude Statistics panel. Click Scan, and it will tell you the peak amplitude of your audio. It shows 0 dB as the peak amplitude. If you now normalize this audio to -3 dB, the entire waveform will shrink so that the highest point becomes -3 dB. Again, if you scan it using amplitude statistics after normalizing, you'll see that the peak is now exactly -3 dB. So, Normalize adjusts the peak level of your audio to a value you choose. If the peak was lower before Normalize, it increases it. If the peak is higher before Normalize, it decreases it. This effect doesn't distort your audio. It simply raises or lowers the overall volume, based on the peak level you set. A few more important points about normalization. Normalize is safe to use multiple times. You can apply it again and again, and it won't degrade the audio quality. If you use the same normalize setting, like -3 dB, on a file that's already at -3 dB, nothing will change. If you use a different value, the waveform will adjust again accordingly. Normalize only adjusts volume. It doesn't fix noise, echo, or clarity. But it's a critical step in controlling loudness before using other effects. So that's how the normalize effect works. It's not the only tool for controlling volume, but it's a great starting point. You'll often combine it with other tools, like compressors or limiters, to get the best results. We'll explore more effects and techniques as we continue. Thanks for watching. If you want to learn audio editing step by step for voiceover, audiobook narration, podcasts, or content creation using Adobe Audition, I have an Adobe Audition bundle for you. The Adobe Audition bundle has a beginner to advanced course, and 5 pre-built presets to make your sound better in one click. You will also get a custom EQ and preset that perfectly match your voice. Every voice, microphone, and recording setup is different. To enhance your voice the most, you need a custom EQ that matches your voice. You will get that in the Adobe Audition bundle. You will learn both beginner and advanced tricks of using Adobe Audition from the course. Your audio can be processed with just a click using the pre-built presets. The bundle is available on my shop and my Patreon page at a heavily discounted price. I will give the links in the description for you to check them out.